Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Khairnisa Kifa, and today I want to present the final project, Applied Linguistics. Okay, let's get started. So the topic today is to make solution for problem 1 and problem 2. Let's begin with the first problem. So let me read the question. Mr. Thompson is a linguist studying the use of language in news reporting. He is particularly interested in how language can convey bias, shape public opinion, and influence the perception of news events. Mr. Thompson analyzes articles from various news outlets covering the same events to identify linguistic patterns that may indicate bias. He also considers the impact of these linguistic choices on the audience's understanding and interpretation of the news. So the question is, what linguistic features should Mr. Thompson focus on to identify bias in news reporting, discuss at least three features, and explain how they can contribute to bias reporting? So to identify bias in news reporting, Mr. Thompson should focus on the first is on high frequency words and word collocation. High frequency words are words that appear frequently in a text and often indicating a particular perspective or ideology. For example, words like vaccine in the context of COVID-19 news may be associated with a particular political stance. Analyzing the frequency of such words can help identify bias. And word collocations refer to the patterns of word combination that frequently occur in a text. These patterns can reveal underlying biases. For instance, the collocation of words like vaccine and safe might indicate a positive bias towards vaccination. The next is presuppositions and reported speech. Presuppositions are implicit assumptions or background knowledge that are taken for granted in a text. They can influence the reader's interpretation and create a biased portrayal of an event. They can, and for example, presuppositions about the credibility of sources can affect how readers perceive the information presented. Reported speech, where a speaker's words are quoted but without using their actual words, can be used to create a false sense of balance. This can lead to biased portrayals by giving equal weight to less credible sources. And third is linguistic complexity and euphemism. The complexity of language used in a news article can affect the credibility of the information presented. Simple language may be perceived as more trustworthy, while complex language may be seen as more sophisticated but less credible. Euphemisms are words or phrases used to avoid direct or unpleasant language. They can be used to create a biased tone by downplaying or softening the impact of certain information. For example, using collateral damage instead of civilian casualties can create a more palatable but less accurate representation of the event. These linguistic features can contribute to biased reporting by shaping public opinion. By using certain words, phrases, or sentence structures, news articles can influence how readers perceive and interpret the information presented. This can lead to a biased public opinion that might not accurately reflect the facts. Techniques like reported speech and presuppositions can create a false sense of balance by giving equal weight to less credible sources. This can lead to a biased portrayal of events, where the less credible side is given equal prominence to the more credible side, influencing the perception of news events. The use of linguistic features like euphemisms and complex language can influence how readers perceive the events being reported. This can lead to a biased understanding of the news, where the reader is more likely to accept the biased perspective presented. By analyzing these linguistic features, Mr. Thompson can gain a deeper understanding of how language is used to convey bias in news reporting and how it shapes public opinion and perception of news events. This knowledge can help him develop more effective methods for identifying and mitigating bias in news reporting. Okay, we move to the second problem. So the problem is, imagine you are a language planner working for the government of a country with a diverse linguistic landscape. The country has several indigenous languages spoken by different ethnic groups, as well as a dominant national language used for official purposes. Your task is to develop language policy that promotes linguistic diversity while ensuring effective communication and national unity. And the question is, how can the government promote the use and preservation of indigenous languages through education? So to promote the use and preservation of indigenous languages through education, the government can implement the following strategies. The first is mother tongue based education. Implement a policy that supports mother tongue based education, where students are taught in their native language for the first few years of school. This approach fosters inclusion and equity as it acknowledges the importance of indigenous languages in the daily lives of students. Implement a trilingual education system where students learn through the dominant national language, a relevant regional language, and their native indigenous language. This approach minimally this approach minimizes language barriers and provides learners with a competitive advantage in both regional and national contexts. And the second is local expertise and resources materials. Engage, engage local experts, including indigenous language speakers and cultural knowledge holders, as co-teachers to ensure that the curriculum is culturally relevant and accurate. This approach helps to validate the knowledge and experiences of indigenous students and promotes cultural affirmation. Utilize locally produced research materials such as reports, videos, maps, and books in the local language to support the curriculum. This approach ensures that the materials are culturally sensitive and relevant to the students' lives. The third is language immersion and cultural orientation. Provide opportunities for students to practice their language skills in immersion environments such as language clubs or cultural events. This approach helps to reinforce language learning and promotes cultural pride. Offer comprehensive cultural orientation programs for new teachers and administrators to ensure they understand the cultural context and can effectively support indigenous language learners. This approach helps to demarginalize minority groups and promotes cultural sensitivity. The fourth is digital initiatives. Utilize digital technologies to promote indigenous languages by creating online content such as videos, memes, and social campaigns. This approach helps to reshape societal attitudes towards indigenous languages and amplifies their presence in digital spheres. Fifth is community engagement and support. Engagement with indigenous communities to understand their needs and priorities. This approach ensures that the language policy is responsive to the needs of indigenous language learners and their communities. Provide support for indigenous language learners, including language classes, cultural activities, and language clubs. This approach helps to create a positive and inclusive environment for language learning. Sixth is education agency support. Ensure that education agencies provide a supportive policy and funding environment that encourages local initiative in the revitalization of indigenous languages. This approach helps to create a consistent and effective framework for language preservation. By implementing these strategies, the government can effectively promote the use and preservation of indigenous languages through education, ensuring that linguistic diversity is valued and respected within the country. The government can promote the use and preservation of indigenous languages through education by implementing a comprehensive language policy that incorporates these principles. By supporting mother tongue-based education, utilizing local expertise and research materials, and engaging in digital initiatives, the government can ensure that linguistic diversity is valued and respected within the country. This approach will not only promote language preservation, but also contribute to the overall well-being, overall well-being and cultural identity of indigenous community. That's all from me. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.